Okay, guys, so I've got something a little special for you. Some of you have seen the teaser on my channel of the walnut and white PerListen system that I'm very blessed to be able to have. And it's been amazing. I talked a little bit about it in my Trenol video as well. Well, sure enough, it sounds like Audio Advice is going to be bringing in PerListen, and which is no doubt one of the smartest moves that they've probably ever made. Because if you got a YouTube reviewer like me investing in a system like this, when I've heard it all, you can imagine why. And now I get to hang out with Erik, who's actually become a good friend of mine in the industry. And I am going to do my review of the system, and I can't wait because I have nothing but genuinely great praise for it. But for now, we get to meet up here at Audio Advice. Didn't even expect this. How about you hear it from the man himself? Erik had a chief role in designing this product, bringing it to market. And you know, it's one of my absolute favorites. So take it away, my friend.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. And, you know, we've got a lot of praise over the products. That's because there's a lot of just good engineering principles. That's really what we believe in, how we design. And we really take that and implement it in all of our speakers. And so the technology started here, but it really flows into every one of our speakers. And so it starts really with a DPC.
Oh, yeah.
And so the directivity pattern control. And what's really unique about that is a lot of people start talking when you see a new loudspeaker is new shiny materials here. You got beryllium there and, you know, all those kind of material improvements. But we really start with the technology first.
Yeah.
And then as I started on the DPC. And so what we're started out doing is controlling vertical directivity, not in an extreme way, but in a smart and intelligent way.
And by that, just for my viewers, you mean controlling ceiling and floor bounces, which tend to be the most offensive, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the energy in the room is really important. We don't want to eliminate it because that's part of what gives you the great experience. And what we would, and the reflection of that is power response. And we'll talk more about that as we move on here. That's really what makes a great sounding speaker in a room. So we're following those engineering principles as well. But in the vertical, most of us can't treat a floor or ceiling. If we have carpet, it's very thin and limited and virtually acoustically inert, or it's not absorbing much except extreme high frequencies. And so if we take out a little bit of that energy, what we allow to do is to have a little more even response at the seating position. And when we say we're controlling it, it's only plus or minus 25, 30 degrees, depending on the system. So when you're at the seating position, that's, you know, floor to ceiling. So people are worried about imaging and moving around and saying it's going to go away is not even a concern at the seating position, and it eliminates some of that early energy. So in order to do that, if I control directivity, I need to control time, amplitude, and phase. So how would you do that normally? You say, well, I'll get an amplifier channel and a DSP for every speaker, and now I can play as many games as I want. But that's not what we're doing here. So we're actually doing that passively. So how do I control time? First step is by having an offset. So the beryllium wave driver in the waveguide is recessed into the waveguide. So that's offset in time compared to the two mid-ranges up here. And so now I have control of time, amplitude and phase. I can control the crossover. And now I have a method now to control directivity. And so the waveguide, the horizontal and vertical is controlled for about, 3K and up. Below that, where it becomes omnidirectional, we're starting to control the vertical by the amplitude and phase of those two drivers. So I can cancel up here and cancel down here at the floor level. But it doesn't stop with the DPC. That moves on actually to the next set of woofers in the stage. And that's really why the tweeters are here. Uniformity is what makes all the magic happen. If I had any uniformity, like putting the tweeters up here, that would throw everything we're doing out of whack. So it's really important about this symmetry. And so next woofers are 1K on down, as low as we can play. And then these are 250 hertz on down. So there's a staging of the frequencies as we get farther and farther apart. So if you imagine if your ears were up here or down the floor, you could say this distance from this driver to my ear or this driver to my ear is different in offset. They cancel. Here they sum. It's now a nice even path to the seating position.
So it's all about forming that ideal beam to reach the listener.
Exactly. And so thus canceling up and down and getting a nice uniform wavefront throughout the listening position. Exactly.
And what I found with this, because I've had these for almost a year now, going on about a year now.
Yeah.
And even in my home, like, guys, I have a small living room. Still, these actually are a very wide speaker. So they cancel the up and down, but you still get that great width to envelop the whole room. But even with that, even before running even Trinol level room correction, just raw, they don't agitate the room all that bad. Now, does the room correction help? Yeah, because any good room correction
Of
would.
course. Yep.
But out of the box, a lot of speakers are not well behaved out of the box, and then better designed ones like this are, and this is in that top tier of just even raw, it does not agitate your room too badly.
Yeah, and I have a lot of friends who are professional home theater designers, and I have a friend who also is a professional. All he does is comes in and calibrates rooms. And he's like, I did my first PerListen room. I'm not sure what I'm correcting. So, but it's about having a great start to help the finish, right? Is room correction. There's a lot of, room modes happen. We can't avert physics.
No.
But we can help ourselves sound better in more rooms. And that's really the goal. Saying, I give an opportunity to have you have a better experience in your listening position. And that's a method to do it. One thing we also really like to talk about that's different is these play down to 1 kilohertz. So in the vocal range, we're really sensitive to THD and sensitive because of human communication. Most people are playing a tweeter down to 2.5 kilohertz, 3 kilohertz range, and they're crossing over to a much larger driver, 4, 5, 8-inch driver. Well, that's a moving mass of 5, 10, 15, 20 grams of moving mass compared to these with 0.3 grams of moving mass. So that light, airy detail is really what we're covering more vocal range with that. And then the high sensitivity, low SPL. So now I have 3 drivers sharing the load. So they have 3 times the power handling, 1/3 the excursion, and 1/3 the distortion. So the lowest distortion in the whole curve is in the waveguide area. So now 117 dB, less than 2% distortion, second to third order. That's why. So a lot of people the tweeter is the main thing to run out of gas, start causing distortion when they turn it up. And that really doesn't happen. So we have people saying, I listen louder now because I don't hear distortion. I keep turning it up, and our ear averages energy together. So distortion is energy, and it sounds like it's not as loud because we don't have any distortion.
I've noticed that. Go figure, this didn't even happen on my own system because I have an S series.
Yeah.
But with some R series that I got to play around with,
Yeah.
I noticed even on those, which are your lesser product, but not really because they're amazing for the price point, I could push that speaker 75, 80% volume on, an otherwise respectable and clean, powerful amp.
Yep.
Whereas other speakers, it's hurting my ears 20% lower than that. And the PerListen is loud, but it's not hurting me at that volume because that distortion's not there.
Yeah, that's the distortion component. That's really, the ear it averages energy and a bandwidth. And so whenever distortion ensues, that gets, sometimes even before you hear distortion or hear massive distortion, your ear says, oh, that's extra energy in this band, and that's in the band of frequencies that I hear. And it sounds 1, 2, 3 dB louder than it actually is, because our ears averaging all that energy together.
Yeah. I had another good friend, and it's funny because I always joke with him that he's deaf because he listens way too loud. But sure enough, we could push these and it would not bother me. And that was the R series again. And he walked away and he was just like, yeah, there's nothing else that I can think of for around 10K that can get that loud and not start to scare me.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Whether either scare me or scare me for the speaker blowing up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's all about that power management, that the thermal characteristics of it, and then the sound quality. So we really stress high dynamics with low distortion. And that's not to get loud. That's to reproduce that 20 dB peak in the music with low distortion. So there might be some loudspeakers that might be able to do that peak, but a lot of them will ensue with distortion. And that's truly something we all roll our eyes when people say, I've never heard that before. But I do assign, if anybody does say that in a statement about our speakers, I think that's the true evidence that comes out of it, is hearing a dynamic like that without ensuing distortion.
Oh, yeah. My favorite things to really show people what the PerListen product can do is to put on like a masterful drum track that was recorded well and then turn it up to volumes that generally I don't even listen to.
11. 11's the only option.
Exactly. Turn it up to volumes I don't even listen to, like 11, and just be like, listen. And there's a track I can think of where it's just quiet, smash, quiet, smash.
Yeah.
And nothing can really get the peaks and valleys like this.
Yeah, and that's really, that's part of the room too. There's room decay and all those kind of things that play into that. But also, if my source stops and starts, then I'm not, projecting that into the room as well.
Awesome. Well, that is an awesome walkthrough, Eric. Thank you so much, man. And guys, you'll be seeing my video where I talk really candidly about this, and I can already tell you it's going to be virtually nothing but praise because the hype is real. The product is legitimate, and I've had it for a year now. I'm running into Erik and the whole system here I didn't even expect, so this was a real treat and a little preview for you. Stay tuned. We got more Audio Advice Live coming, and then that review that I promised way too long ago and mentioned in my Trent-Off video is coming, and that's going to be a great production, so be seeing you.
Thanks.